Okay, so just a quick run through here of a DESMOS activity in order to introduce domain and range. You may have heard domain and range before, not too sure, but they're just two mathematical terms that we need to understand so we can work with functions later on. So just going to run through here really quickly and I'll let you kind of do the same afterwards. So the key in getting through this activity will be understanding what domain and range mean. Domain is all of the x values covered by the graph. The range is all the y values covered by the graph. So if we look at this first part of the activity, it says a mathematician says something's wrong with the shading of this graph. What do you think it is? Well, it's basically that the shading is supposed to be covering the domain of the graph, and the domain of the graph is basically the x values covered, again, by the graph itself, by this black line. And so fix it, essentially we're going to be able to grab this dot here, move this over so that the shaded area is covering all the x values that are included on the graph. The one key to sort of notice here is the one value over here is filled in, meaning the 1, an x value of 1 is definitely included in the graph. And then of course the 4 here, by being an open circle and by being a dotted line, the implication is that that x equals 4 is not included. The next key will be understanding how to write the domain. And so here is how we write this expression. 1 is less than or equal to x, because all the values of x are on this side of the 1, and x is less than 4. In order to actually write that, if you put your greater than symbol in or your less than symbol in, and then followed by the equal sign, it includes it as a single symbol. In this case, of course, we wanted just less than 4, but just sort of wanted to cover how to type that in, because in subsequent sections, that's what you'll be doing. You'll be typing in this sort of expression to indicate what is covered by the domain of the graph. In this case here, they're giving us -9 less than x less than -5 as our domain. So that's the shaded area here. Of course, not the shaded area we want. And so the idea would be that I'm going to change this to make it fit with the graph that I have. Here it's looking like 1, 2, looks like about 1.5. So -1.5 is going to be this value. This value is going to be less than +1. You can see that the shade is now hitting the correct locations, but wait a minute, I need to have this 1.5 included. And so again, equal sign in here gives me a solid bar here, indicates that the -1.5 is part of my solution, and then the less than 1 is still correct at this point. And basically it goes through a few questions on that, rewriting things, writing them properly yourself, and then later on you end up in a section where you're doing the same sort of thing with the range, and basically you're just dealing with y values now and writing in the solution for the y values in exactly the same way as you would have with the x's. So I'm going to leave it there, just a quick introduction, and hopefully you can go through the activity yourself, get a feel for what domain and range are, and more specifically, how to write a proper domain and a proper range, depending on what the function looks like.